Next we will be making the arms for Barry the Bear. Again, in round 1 we will be starting off with a slip knot, and we will then chain 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. In the second chain from the hook we are going to make an increase, in the next stitch a single crochet, in the last stitch a 4 single crochet increase by making 4 single crochets in the same spot. That's 2, 3 and 4, followed by a single crochet and an increase in the last stitch, which is also the first stitch you worked in. And that brings us to the end of round 1 of the arm. For round 2 we are going to work an increase in the first stitch, notoriously tough to get into that one, followed by 4 single crochets. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to repeat that little pattern, so the next stitch gets an increase, followed by 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3 and 4, which brings us to the end of round 2. For round 3 and 4 we are going to work 12 single crochets all the way around, so that's 1 per stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, which brings us to the end of round 3, and we are going to repeat that for round 4. So we go again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, which brings us to the end of round 4. For round 5 we're going to start with 2 single crochets. So first stitch, single crochet, second stitch, single crochet. We are then going to make 2 decreases. So stitch 3 and 4, get crochet together as our first decrease. Stitch 5 and 6, get crochet together as our second decrease, and then we will make 6 single crochets on the remaining 6 stitches of the round. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which brings us to the end of round 5. For round 6, 7 and 8, we are going to repeat the same instruction of making 10 single crochets in each round. So it's 1 single crochet in each stitch that we've got. So that's number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which brings us to the end of round 6. I'm going to do the same thing for round 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is the end of round 7. Going to repeat this one more time for round 8. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, a consequence of working in the round in a spiral is that our work keeps twisting towards the right hand side if we're right-handed, and it'll keep twisting towards the left hand side if we are left-handed. This means that things don't always line up nicely the way we would like them to. In order to make them line up, we add something called a shift stitch. A shift stitch's only job is to move your stitch marker from one position to the next. Now for the arm, we're only going to add one shift stitch at the end of round 8, which means instead of putting the stitch marker back there as we normally would, we are going to make one more single crochet in the next stitch. This single crochet is what's known as our shift stitch. We now put our marker into this shift stitch single crochet. Our row count stays 10 even though we've added this. It is just to change the positioning of the end of the round for there. So that brings us to the end of round 8. At the end of round 8, it becomes time to start stuffing the arm. Now, we do not want to stuff the whole thing. We want to stuff the hand section quite firmly. I'm going to use my flat-ended hook because the opening is a little bit small to comfortably stuff without one. And I'm shoving the stuffing all the way down into the hand. So we want the hand area to be firmly stuffed. Now you'll see where you made the decreases, it sort of curves in a little bit there. That's exactly what we want. So this part we want very firmly stuffed. Add a little bit more. Now, although we've stuffed the hand part very firmly, this section here. This last part of the arm we want to leave empty. So we're not going to put any stuffing in there. We're just stuffing the hand section. So if you look in, you'll see that the top part, about that much, is completely empty of stuffing. And that is how you stuff the arm. Okay, now that we have finished stuffing the arm, we are going to crochet it closed. How we do that is we are going to start by pushing the opening closed. We're going to put our hook back into the last loop. That was a shift stitch at the end of round 8. Now what we want to do is we want to crochet through this side and that side in order to close this up properly. So we start by putting our hook into the next stitch through it, and then also into the last stitch that we made, so that the hook goes through both sides of the opening like that. We then make our first single crochet. It can be a little difficult to maneuver the yarn through both sides at first. Becomes a lot easier after you have done the first stitch. That's number 1. Then you go into the next stitch and its opponent on the other side, and you crochet through both sides with your second single crochet. Going to repeat it with a third single crochet, and in the next one with a fourth single crochet, and in the final one we're going to make single crochet number 5. We're then going to just chain 1 to finish off. If you want to sew your arms into a stationary position, you need to leave yourself a medium length end. If you want to create movable limbs like I did, you can only leave a short end, which you then pull through the chain stitch. You're going to put that short end on your tapestry needle, and you're going to hide it inside the arm that you've just created by sticking the needle through and letting it come out at a random point. There we go. Just cut that end off, and you have completed your arm. Now you need to have 2 arms to make Barry the Bear, so you need to repeat this section of the video a second time to make your second arm, and when you are done they should look like this. When you are ready, return to the next section of the video where we will show you how to create movable limbs. Next we will be creating movable arms for Barry the Bear. You'll need your head and body, your arms, your giant needle, some pins, your shears. You may or may not need your pliers, and of course you will need some fishing line. Please try and get the strongest one you can find, because you want to have some strength when you are creating these arms. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is to pin the arms into the place that we want on the bear. So you take your bear, you take your arm, and you place it on the side. Now I normally check from the side so that the ear and the arm is actually in line with each other. The front tip of the arm is just touching where the muzzle attaches, and I've actually pushed it so it is against the neck area. I then take pin number 1 and pop it through the side. Pin number 2, pop it from the other side, and that should be sufficient to hold my arm into place. And you can see from the front. Now important, when you are pinning, you'll notice you've got this curved area. That curved area needs to be against the body on either side. So on the right hand side the curved area went like that. When we go to the left hand side, we want to turn it around. So you don't want to create that type of effect. You want to flip it over so the curved area touches the body. Now you want to even your position. So again, you want to line your arm up with your ear. Again, you want the front part to be just touching the muzzle. And again, you want to pop your 2 pins through. Number 1 and number 2. Now, as always, it's best to check from all directions to make sure that you have pinned your arms in the correct position. So check from the front that they look nice and even, it doesn't seem uneven. Check from the sides, check from the back. You can even check from the bottom, which will show you nicely if you have managed to center your muzzle between your 2 arms. Once you are happy with the position, if you just want to create a stationary arm, you would use your yarn end to sew along the top there. And you just sew across and across with invisible stitches as you did to sew on the ears, and you would do it on each arm. Tie off your yarn, and that would give you stationary arms which would be able to move up and down but not forward and backwards. If you want to create movable limbs, you will be needing your big needle and your fishing line in the next clip. Okay, with fishing line being see-through, it is difficult to see, but I have already placed a length of fishing line onto my giant needle. You can see it there. So basically just try to follow the process, and remember there is fishing line attached to the needle. So we're going to start by turning our bear over, and we're going to start in the middle of the back. You can pick any random stitch roughly around here to go in. When you finish off, you're going to want to come out the same stitch. Now we're going to push our needle to the side because we want it to come out of our arm on the left hand side here. So like that. You can see it's about 2 rounds away from the head that my needle comes out. And then push the needle through, and I pull my fishing line through, but I do leave an end, a tail, sticking out, and it's very important to make sure that this end keeps sticking out. Don't make it too short, you're going to need to work with it later. Now this is the tricky part. You need to go back in to the same hole that your fishing line just came out of, and then you're going to push your needle all the way through to the other side of the arm, and you want to come out on approximately the same height. So make sure that you go into the same hole. If you go into a different hole, you're going to get an effect you don't like. Push your needle straight through the body and have it come out. Careful not to push your arm off. You want it to go through the arm. There we go. So you want your needle to go all the way through like we've got it there. You then pull it through. Again, make sure not to pull your fishing line all the way through. Hold on to that little tail that you've got at the back. As you pull it through, the loop that you had on this side should disappear into the arm. Then on the other side, you now want to repeat this stitch. So you want to go into the same hole you came out of and push your needle all the way through the body, just like you did in the previous one. As you can see, it can be tough to get in there. And you want to come out in roughly the same spot that you did before. There we go. Push push the needle through. Make sure your fishing line doesn't get caught on your limb or anything like that. You want it to actually disappear into the arm. As you're pulling it tight, like that. You then repeat this a couple of times. I generally do it 3 or 4 times because I want to make sure that it's quite firmly attached. And it's the same process each time. It becomes a little easier as you do it a few times because your needle has created some space for you in the stuffing. So the main trick here is each time you want to go into the same hole that you come out of. You don't want to go into a different hole. And each time you want to make sure that your tail end at the back does not get pulled in. It's very important that you leave that out. And you want to make sure that your fishing line disappears. And this is going to be the last time that I go all the way through. Just pull. Okay, now we're again going to go in through the same hole, but this time instead of working all the way through, we want to come back out at this original entry point in the middle of the back that we had. So you just want to push your needle at an angle so it comes out there. So the start and the end of the fishing line should be peeking out through the same hole in the middle of the back. You'll notice I've left my pins in place the whole way through because the arms aren't secured yet. Now, this sounds complicated, but once you've done it, I promise you, you're never going to want to sew a limb into place again, because A, it's cuter when they move, and B, this is so much easier than sewing them into a single position. Now, this part is key. You want to get hold of your 2 ends. You want to go and tie them once as though you're going to knot, but before you make the knot you want to pull tight as you can pull. If you don't pull tight, your arms will be loose and then they won't look nice, but if you pull tight they will be in position properly. This is why you need a strong fishing line so it doesn't snap when you pull really tight. Once you're happy with how tight you've pulled, you want to tie it a second time to create a knot. I tie it several times just to be sure because I do not like it if it comes loose. So that's the 3rd time I tie it. And the 4th time we tie it. At this point we're going to snip off close to the body the leftover ends, and then just like we've done with every other finish off, we just push that knot into the body so that the fishing line ends don't stick out. Just touch it to make sure it's nice and smooth. Then you can take your pins out, and you'll notice as your pins have come out your arms have stayed in position, but they can now move. So you can make it look like your teddy is reaching out to you. And they can also move all the way to the back, so you can have a running teddy if you want. Or you can have your teddy with the arms down in the traditional teddy position. It's entirely up to you. So creating movable arms and movable legs, you would use exactly the same technique for legs as you do for arms. Only difference is you would be going lower on the body, more in the bum area, enter in the middle, go through, all the way through, all the way through, all the way through until you're happy, and then come back out, pull tight, knot. And that is how to create movable limbs.